I'd like to welcome everyone once again to this month's Wildlife for Lunch webinar. Today's webinar is on wetland function in the Texas rice belt. It's presented by Dan Kesey with USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. Today's webinar is made possible through funding provided by the San Antonio Livestock Exposition Incorporated, and it's hosted by the Texas Wildlife Association and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. Dan, I'll pass the controls over to you, and you should be good to go.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Clint, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate you all being here to hear what I'm going to talk about. I'd like to thank Clint and the Texas Wildlife Association for the opportunity to talk to you about just ecosystem. I have ecosystem function in the Texas rice belt here, and you can easily insert the word wetland function. We'll talk more in a little bit, but just about exactly what an ecosystem function is. They apply to all ecosystems. This presentation is kind of a look at this phenomena from, I guess you would say, about a 30,000-foot view. So I'm not going to get into great detail on many of these aspects of ecosystem function. I'm a conservationist by trade, so what that means is I know a little bit about several things. I'm not really that much of an expert in anything. So I thought we would, okay, there we go. Okay, I thought we'd kind of proceed in this manner. Just a little bit of a background about rice, about rice production worldwide, and then on down to the United States and in Texas. A real quick view of how things proceed on an annual cycle on a rice farm in today's market. We'll talk a little bit, I'll define ecosystem function, and then we'll just look at some specifics in the Texas rice belt. Most of these are associated with rice fields, and there's lots of ecosystem functions where you can't talk about all of them. I'm just going to highlight some of those, the more common ones, and then at the end maybe talk about some ecosystem function that escapes our notice at times, and just some ideas on some things where you might be able to get some habitat benefits from some overlooked areas. Okay, here we go. This statement right here, Glenn Menzenmeyer is a technician for us down in the LaGrange field office, and this statement to me kind of sums up just exactly what it is about the Texas rice belt and the number of ecosystem or wetland functions that are derived from that phenomena, and it is that the time needed to grow and harvest 2 rice crops fits tightly between the average freeze dates along the Gulf Coast, and that is one of the reasons, and it is the reason why that's the only place where 2 rice crops are grown. And it's just that kind of summarizes the phenomena to me in a very succinct manner. Rice, a lot of times I think maybe here in the U.S. rice is not that big a deal to us, but worldwide it is a very important crop to roughly half of the world's population. That 50% of the world's population get somewhere around 1/5 of their calories and 15% of their protein on a daily basis from rice. Worldwide, rice is harvested on about 370 million acres. 90% of those acres are in Asia. In the U.S., the average crop over the last 5 years is around 2.9 million acres. Those acres go up and down a little bit, but 2.9 to 3 million acres of rice production in the U.S. is a good figure to use. And what is it about those acres in the U.S. that enable them to continue this economic rice production? There's primarily 4 factors. You have to have high average temperatures during the growing season, and you need a plentiful and timely supply of water. It's one thing to have all the water you need. It's another thing to have all the water you need when you need it. You need a smooth land surface for both uniform flooding and drainage. Once you get the water off, it's just as important that the water be removed at the right time in a timely manner. And of course, you need a subsoil hard pan, something that's going to hold the water, or as one rice farmer told me, you need land that's going to hold water like a jug. So if you're going to spend a lot of money to pump water onto this area, you need to make sure it stays there. U.S. rice production primarily in 4 parts of the country: the Arkansas Grand Prairie, which is kind of Little Rock, east of Little Rock and to the southeast, in the Mississippi Delta, which runs from roughly the boot heel of Missouri down through Mississippi and Arkansas into Louisiana, on the Gulf Coast, southwest Louisiana, the Texas Gulf Coast, and in the Sacramento Valley of California. Wait just a minute. Okay. Each of these regions tend to kind of very generally specialized in a type of rice production. There's the 3 grain lengths in rice. Most of the long grain rice in the U.S. is grown in the south. That makes up about somewhere in the neighborhood of 70% of the total U.S. production. Medium grain rice is grown in California and the south. Most of the medium grain rice in the south is grown in Arkansas, and that medium grain rice makes up about 1/4 of the U.S. production annually. And short grain rice is grown pretty much specifically in California and usually makes up around, 2-3% of the total annual production. This is a map kind of depicting where these rice growing areas, which are in yellow, and that is overlapping with the areas in the continental United States that are home to large populations of wintering waterfowl. And as you can see, the 2 correlate pretty highly. Another takeaway from this is in the winter there are just a ton of wintering waterfowl in Texas, both on the high plains, along the Gulf Coast, and in Arkansas and Louisiana. Very important waterfowl wintering areas. And when I say waterfowl, I'm not focusing exclusively on ducks and geese. There are a lot of shorebird and wading bird migrants that spend their winters or it's stopover habitat on the Gulf Coast and in the Mississippi Valley. Which brings us to the Texas, what I call the Texas Rice Belt. It's 18 counties in southeast Texas. Here we go. And a little over, or not quite, 16,000 square miles. And I'm supposed to have a graphic that's not working. Here it goes. Okay, these are the counties, and again, 18 counties, about 16,000 square miles. It's about 200 miles from Orange to Victoria, The average width is about 75 miles. We talked about growing season, high average temperatures during the growing season. These are the growing season lengths in those counties, and as you can see, several of these counties have effectively year-round growing season. The average growing season length in these counties is 333 days, so there's plenty of growing season. There's plenty of high average temperatures during that time. The rainfall, another aspect of rice production is the water supply. You can see this is the average rainfall amounts in these counties. Although rainfall doesn't supply all the water that rice farmers need, it certainly plays a big part in economic rice production in this area. And I just thought I would throw this in to kind of give you an idea about these. This is one of the aspects of Texas that is kind of competing with rice production, and that is a rapidly expanding population. Harris County here in the middle kind of jumps out at you, almost over 2,000 people per square mile, and that population is kind of reflected down in Fort Bend County and in Brazoria County with some pretty high population densities. Beaumont and Orange have fairly high population densities, and so that's a kind of a critical factor in where rice production is going to continue. This is a graphic depicting the acres planted to rice from 1995 to 2015. The blue is 1995, the red color is 2005, and the green or adobe color is 2015, the red is 2005. And these 8 counties on the left generally make up in the area of 80 to 85% of Texas's annual rice production, and this is the remaining 10 counties. And you can see there has been a pretty consistent decline in the acres planted. It's not necessarily a bad thing. There are a number of reasons for that. There's certainly as the population density in some of those counties kind of reflect that there's competition for the land in those counties. There's a number of rice farmers that over the last few years have retired from rice farming. But by the same token, the rice varieties that are being grown today typically yield much more, in some instances almost twice as much as the rice varieties used to yield. So the rice farmer that's planting that has reduced his acreage over the last 5 years may still actually be getting a higher total per acre yield due to the increased production in the individual rice varieties. This is just kind of just a real quick view of the production cycle in the Texas rice belt. Rice farmers will spend the fall and spring kind of in just the land prep phase of their operation, disking, smoothing, getting the seed bed ready. In March, sometime in March in the early spring, the rice crop is planted. It's followed by flushing, which is kind of a mechanism to help seedling establishment. About a month or 6 weeks or so after the crop emerges, they'll flood the fields 3, 4, 6 inches deep and hold that water on the crop until a couple of weeks or so before harvest, then harvest the crop in July and August. That rice harvest is going on now as we speak in the rice belt. That's the main crop. Then not always, but sometimes they will reflood those same fields, hold the water until a short time before harvest, and then they'll harvest again in sometime in October and November, and this is called the ratoon crop, or the second crop. And this is, we had the statement at the beginning from Glenn Menzenmeyer, and this is kind of what he's talking about. They have this main crop, and then they reflood the fields and grow a second crop in many of those fields. This is just kind of a look at the landscape in that in the Texas rice belt. You can see it's very flat. This is depicting kind of irrigation on the contour using infield ditches, which is kind of the old way of doing things. It was less expensive. One of the challenges was that if you pumped water in this field, you may have an area where the water was 1 inch deep or less, which might not be all the water you needed, and in another portion of the field, the water might be 8 inches deep or so, which might be too deep. And so as a result of that, and especially with the increasing costs of input associated with rice production, particularly the cost of water, pumping water, fields have gone to this, which is a much more engineered, it's almost a rice paddy type of structure. These slopes are very uniform, and so that if a farmer has a budget to pump 4 inches of water over this entire field, he knows that when he pumps that water, he will have the amount of water he needs, where he needs it, when he needs it. This is just kind of looking down one of the irrigation ditches. This is shortly after seedling establishment, and you can see that this is probably shortly after a flushing. This is later in the growing season, and again, notice how flat and uniform the landscape is. And this is rice harvest, and you can see over here on the right, you can see the birds, and on the left, the birds kind of circling for the waste rice and the insects that are scared up. And this might be the same field in the winter. Water is held on the field. A lot of good habitat, both habitat for dabbling ducks. It also provides mudflat habitat for shorebirds and wading birds, and it's a very habitat-rich environment. So, what is this ecosystem function that we're talking about? This is kind of the long technical definition. Ecosystem functions are the things that an ecosystem does. There's a lot of talk about functions and values. Values are just that. They're the value that a society places on an individual function. You can also talk about functions as being processes, or a process or a series of processes that take place within an ecosystem. We talked about a wide variety of ecosystem functions. They can be simple, they can be complex. Water storage in wetlands, associated with wetlands, is a commonly mentioned ecosystem or wetland function, ecosystem function. It's pretty simple. You know, the water flows into that area and is held there for however long. A function that would be, we might talk about maintaining ecological integrity, would be much more complex, and it would encompass numerous components and processes that take place within an ecosystem. And again, kind of going back to the rice production down in the Texas rice belt, it is kind of a unique area. This two crops in the same field in the same growing season mean that this second crop, which is grown, although yields are typically lower, that's kind of what boosts the habitat function for these areas. Following the harvest efficiency, is usually lower. Sometimes the weather prevents someone from getting into a field. They prevent access to an area, and those areas may be left unharvested, which leaves, and this is happening in October, November. There's less time for those the waste seed, particular seeds that areas that are not harvested. There's less time for those rice seed to decompose before the wintering waterfowl arrive, and as a result provide a tremendous food source for these animals. And rice fields flooded after harvest is a real common subject to discussion in wildlife management. This is what you're looking at is what people tend to focus on, and that is water or ducks in these areas. And I've talked a lot about the waste rice seed being a food source for these animals, but also remember that these rice stalks, these vertical rice stalks, provide a lot of structure for the soft-bodied invertebrates that kind of blossom in these areas when they're flooded, and those soft-bodied invertebrates, of course, are a real important protein source for all wintering waterfowl. There we go. In fact, let's make sure. Okay, this is some information. Roughly 20% of the dabbling ducks in the U.S. make their winter home along the Gulf Coast, and when you consider the food availability from these flooded rice fields, it represents on an annual basis somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to maybe 40% of the food available resources for these animals. Okay, I'm having a tough time here. There we go. Okay, and this is kind of, to me, is kind of an arresting bit of information. For all ducks and geese along the Texas coast in the winter, roughly in the neighborhood of 4 million birds, this is where they are getting their habitat. And these rice fields are providing the majority of their habitat during this time. There's a lot of focus on these coastal marshes, which are indeed important habitats, but they are spending up to half their time and more in these rice fields and getting their food resources there. Just kind of a measure of the food abundance, the waterfowl food abundance that is available in these rice fields. Immediately post-harvest, you'll have upwards of 350 pounds of waste rice per acre. By the time late season, that number is declined to between 150 and 200 pounds. And in the idle fallow fields, you'll have moist soil seed from things like smartweed and various grasses, emergent grasses. You'll have upwards of 350 pounds of seed in those areas. And again, you know, this doesn't measure the invertebrate abundance in these areas. The caloric value of some of these seed, you can see how over on the left how high rice is. This is total metabolizable energy in the various food sources. Grasses and pigweed are pretty high. Smartweed, the individual seed, is pretty high or fairly low in terms of energy for the animal. But you can see that rice provides a high level of energy. Waste rice provides a lot of nutrients and energy for these animals during this important and critical time of the year. This is some Rice Foundation information regarding the number of species that are commonly associated and found in Gulf Coast rice fields. And this is ducks and geese on the left, shorebirds, wading birds, other water birds, raptors, other birds, and then mammals. A lot of attention is directed at ducks and geese, but when you consider the number of other birds in these areas, in and around these rice fields, there's roughly 56 species, and these are species that are common, found on an annual basis in and around these rice fields. And all sorts of, a whole variety of species, sandpipers, killdeers. These are egrets. Great blue herons are common in the rice field areas. Grebes, sparrow hawks, what I grew up calling a sparrow hawk, commonly found, and then wrens, red-winged blackbirds, meadowlarks, all are commonly found in and around these rice fields. Another aspect of rice fields, rice production, you'll notice this infield levee here. These are all birds. These are ibises, and I think some egrets up here. And there is evidence that these animals prefer these areas because they provide a safer habitat for them, in that the predators, whatever it is that might function as a predator for these birds, is kind of excluded from these and won't venture out into these rice field areas. And now just something for you to consider as something that may not be considered as that important a habitat in these areas are the irrigation canals. And there's been worldwide, there's been a good bit of effort directed at documenting the ecosystem function that irrigation canals have in cropland areas in South America and in Europe. There's been a lot of documentation. They're usually viewed as just a hydrological infrastructure that is there to support agriculture. But they are indeed, and particularly as many of these irrigation canals, irrigation ditches have matured, have stabilized over the years, they've kind of become these biological communities with several ecosystem functions related to water quality, pollination, habitat for pollinators, nectar and pollen sources for the pollinating insects, and just habitat for a variety of animals. This is an irrigation canal, and I think this is in Wharton County. A lot of habitat structure which is developed over the years, and in fact, scientists think that the invertebrate diversity in these waters is comparable to the same phenomena in small lakes and kind of semi-natural wetlands. Now an engineer might call this friction, but from a habitat viewpoint, there's a lot of habitat associated here with this vertical structure here, and then the habitat in the water for various wildlife species. I think these are Gars, so we may not all like gar balls, but lo and behold, it does provide a habitat. These animals may provide a food source for another animal. And this is probably, not the best habitat, but in the dead of winter, there's, a source of water and at least some thermal and protective cover here. So it does provide a level of habitat, and if managed, they might actually provide a higher quality or additional more habitat. So The rice fields in Texas, in the rice belt, habitat for wintering waterfowl. And lots of species, not just ducks and geese, wading birds, shorebirds, other birds, habitat for mammals, and then the irrigation canals and the edge of field can provide both habitat and ecosystem function in terms of not only habitat but also water quality improvements and various sequestration type functions. And so that's kind of it. Again, we didn't talk about all of them, but it's just a look at some of the habitat, some of the various functions that you can find in these areas in the Texas rice belt. And these are the references in case you're interested. And thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dan. As of right now, they're going to let you off easy. We don't have any questions that came in. I will say that we do have some time to answer questions. We did have one that just popped up. Why has the overall acreage declined so much in rice production?
Well, I don't know. I don't think there's any specific reason. A lot of it has to do with, you know, we had the slide that showed the population density, and I think that's, a lot of people think that plays a large role in it, and it certainly does. There's a lot of competition for that space for all sorts of land uses. There is kind of the demographics of the rice farmer community. There's numerous rice farmers have reached retirement age and have done so, and often the children, the rice farmers' children, have chosen not to go into agriculture, and so they divest themselves of the property and that investment. I think those are the two that come to mind to me immediately. But again, I mean, in terms of rice, the rice supply, remember that the acreage or the production per acre that rice farmers are getting today, in many instances, is almost twice as much as it was, say, 20 and 30 years ago. So anyway, that's kind of what I think about the decline in rice acreage.
Okay. Still have some time if anybody else has any additional questions. I wanted to point out that I threw up a link in the chat window. If you save that link, you will be able to go back and watch this webinar once we get it archived in the next week or so. And any other webinar that we've done in the past will be archived at that link as well. I wanted to point out that next month's webinar is going to be on September 15th. It will be on disease ecology in the changing world, presented by Dr. Ivan Castro of Texas State University. And if you can't remember the date, just remember third Thursday of the month. Looks like we don't have any other questions coming in, so Dan, I guess with that we'll close it up. If you have anything else.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I thank you for the opportunity, and I hope I've provided a level of enlightenment for the listeners.
Absolutely, we really appreciate you